And I'm recording this on May the 11th, 2024. This video is called Revelation 17, the Great Harlot. In the image on the left, we have a harlot or a prostitute dressed in purple and scarlet, which is red. In her hand, her left hand lifted, there is a golden cup, and she's sitting upon a multi-headed, multi-horned beast. Adjacent to her is a picture of the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian and himself and a number of other Holy Roman emperors fit with what this prophecy is all about. This prophecy is expanded over a very lengthy period of time, culminating in the end of the age before our Messiah comes to eliminate those who would do such evil as the Great Harlot. As we're about to read here in Revelation chapter 17, I must say that Revelation chapter 17 is the clearest prophecy I could ever imagine. I believe it's the clearest prophecy anywhere in the Bible, and it has the best signals of identification that I've ever seen. And what I'm going to describe here is I'm going to show how Revelation 17 pinpoints the greatest political and religious power that has ever been put forth by the efforts of mankind. And it's so clear, and there is so much power involved, political and religious and social power, that this chapter needs to be one of the major foundations of anything we would understand in prophecy. Reading here in Revelation chapter 17 and verse 1, Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. I'm going to say right in the very beginning of this video, right now, that this harlot is the opposite of the bride. There's the bride of our Messiah. Some would call it, the bride of Christ. And that is those who will reign and rule with our Messiah in the coming kingdom that he will set up. However, a harlot is the opposite of a bride. It is not a pure thing. In fact, it's a pretend bride. And that's what this is about. It's about proving that the Roman Catholic Church is the pretend bride of Christ that has been so politically and religiously dominant all over the world. Looking at this here, Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters. So this is stating that this harlot sits on many waters. I'm saying that the many waters indicates all the continents of the world. With the huge influence of the Roman Catholic Church, it has touched everywhere over the centuries. It even became a dominant religious power in the Philippines and in Vietnam at some point. Even it reached out to Asia. And it states here that with this harlot, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So the kings of the earth were involved with this harlot. And they committed terrible things. It calls it fornication here. And the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. What a perfect picture as we take a look at some history here. This image on the screen shows 40 images of different Roman emperors that were called the Holy Roman Emperors over a span of about 1,000 years. They varied as to the country of their origin, perhaps the majority from Germany, Other ones were from Italy and France. What happened was, starting with Charlemagne approximately the year 800, the Roman Catholic Church gave favor to the most powerful king in Europe and crowned continual kings for approximately 1,000 years, crowned them as the Holy Roman Emperor. It was a win-win situation. The Roman Catholic Church held religious sway over the people of Europe, and the various kings held political and military sway. So over a very lengthy period of time, there was a union between church and state. Now this picture isn't very clear, but we're just going to touch upon this as I show you another picture. However, it was a powerful union with an ongoing inertia that the Roman Catholic Church held with fear over the peoples of Europe. On the screen here we see an ancient painting of Emperor Charlemagne. He was also called Charles the Great. He was the Holy Roman Emperor from the year 800 to 814. Now, just reading off the internet, just a brief introduction to Charlemagne. It states that he was the oldest son of Pepin the Short, and Charlemagne became king in 768 in Germany following the death of his father. He was initially the co-ruler with his brother Carloman. However, Carloman's sudden death under unexplained circumstances left Charlemagne as the undisputed ruler of the Frankish kingdom, which is what they would have called Germany a long time ago. It states here, Charlemagne continued his father's policy towards the papacy and became its protector, removing the Lombards from power in northern Italy and leading an incursion into Muslim Spain. He also campaigned against the peoples to his east, Christianizing them upon penalty of death, at times leading events such as the massacre of Verdun. And so Charlemagne reached the height of his power in the year 800 when he was crowned emperor by Pope Leo III on Christmas Day at Old St. Peter's Basilica. Interesting, it talks here about that he Christianized peoples upon the penalty of death. My recent readings on these Holy Roman Emperors showed that there was frequent shifts as to who was in the position of Holy Roman Emperor, and the historical records show that it was largely, and I'm just going to read a line here from the same website where this picture comes. It states here that a Holy Roman Emperor was only as strong as his army and alliances made him. So what an unbelievable secular situation where a king has an army and he's crowned by the Pope, who is the most revered man and feared man in all of Europe, and it comes down to how strong his army is to keep him in position. That's why in 1,000 years they had identified 40 of these men who were crowned the Holy Roman Emperors, and there was time gaps in between where there wasn't these Holy Roman Empires. But just think that the union of church and state shaped a very ugly world that required strong armies. It required persecution of people who would not bow down to the Roman Catholic Church. And on this website, there's pictures, the close-up picture of all these different 40 Holy Roman Emperors. I just wanted to include this picture and a brief story on this Holy Roman Emperor. His name was Maximilian, and he was the Holy Roman Emperor from 1493 until 1519. Now that's almost 700 years after Charlemagne was crowned that. So the papacy 700 years later is still up to their famous tricks here. And he received the position of being Holy Roman Empire because his father, Frederick III, who was the Holy Roman Empire, had passed away. And so Maximilian, he had jointly held the office with his father for the last 10 years of his father's reign as the Holy Roman Emperor. But then through marriage of his son, Philip the Handsome, that's quite a name, and Maximilian established the Habsburg dynasty in Spain. So it turned out that he became the ruler of the Holy Roman Empire and the Spanish Empire simultaneously. But just a bit of a picture of how long of a period of time. So just imagine if we could fly over Europe in those days, and just imagine that somehow we could be in a hot air balloon and we could picture hundreds of years and just see the struggle between militaries and what the Roman Catholic Church did with literally threatening upon death. And we've all heard stories, and I've read some portions of some books that explained. I even read that over this lengthy period of time, this 1,000 years, that some historians believe that the Roman Catholic Church killed 140 million people. The operation was huge. There was all types of loyalties to various lords in various areas around Europe, and the various lords and kings of smaller nations. Their allegiance to Rome was pictured by the fact that around the year 1300, many of these kings in Europe, they wanted to go on pilgrimages all the way to Jerusalem because the religion held so much sway over them. And there was these famous military order called the Knights Templar. They set up a system to enable the lords of Europe to travel all the way from England, Germany, France, all the way to Jerusalem. And during those many months that they were gone, the Knights Templar actually protected the castles of those kings. And they all fell under the shifting role of who was the Holy Roman Emperor, but there was always one consistency. It was the papacy and the Roman Catholic Church, and their ways, as we will discuss, were very blasphemous to God, and that's why they're called the Great Harlot, and they swayed Europe for such a long period of time. So back to reading Revelation chapter 17. I'm going to try and not make this too long today, but I just wanted to point out that here, the harlot who sits on many waters worldwide, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication. They committed the fornication for a very long time, and in modern times, the Roman Catholic Church has had to rely on more covert, more sneaky methods of influencing the governments of the world, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication, perhaps that wine even referring to what we're going to read about this cup here. So he carried him away in the spirit. That is, the angel carried away the writer John of the book of Revelation into the wilderness, and I saw the woman sitting on a scarlet beast which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And when we read about the scarlet beast with 7 heads and 10 horns in the book of Daniel, it explains that these are successive empires that have the mindset of controlling false religion, culminating in this power, the Roman Catholic Church. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with precious gold, with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And on her forehead was written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. So the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet. This great religious system, the Roman Catholic Church, dressed in purple and scarlet. I went on Google Images. You hit the word images on Google and it gives you just pictures. And I typed in Roman Catholic cardinals for pictures. I wanted pictures of cardinals. On the screen here we see a picture of cardinals. And they are dressed in purple and red, scarlet. The people in the white are the choirs. This exists to even this day. Purple and scarlet is by far the dominant color of the Roman Catholic Church. Again, we're looking here at a picture of various leaders in the Roman Catholic Church. These ones all happen to be dressed in purple. When I Googled the Roman Catholic cardinals, it never showed any pictures of any of them dressed in green or yellow or blue. Always purple and scarlet. Again, we see here purple and scarlet. Gold is a common color as well, but then again, the Vatican is full of gold. There's gold everywhere, and perhaps they have more gold than any organization on earth. And here we've got one of their fearless leaders with a golden cup that is lifted. And we've been talking about the Roman Catholic Church fornicating with the leaders and the kings of the earth. And here's a picture of the Pope in 2015. This is in the balcony of the White House in Washington, D.C., America. And notice that the two gentlemen on the edges here, a purple and a scarlet or a red beanie, they're both overlooking this obelisk. This is the adoring people in Washington. And this Pope here Pope Francis, he had just visited with the U.S. Congress because he holds tremendous sway with the U.S. Congress. So let's think. All the way back to Charlemagne and further back with Constantine, here we are 1700 years later, and you can be certain that the Pope had some very deep and secret things to discuss with the leaders of America on this visit. His men with the purple and scarlet on their little beanies here. I've seen various people that were teaching on Revelation 17, and they would say things like that this harlot actually is a Muslim creature, and in this golden cup that she holds is oil, because the Arab states have all these riches from oil. And these types of teachings are not supported. If you're going to connect the dots, you better have a lot of dots to connect. And I've seen so many poor teachings that don't tell us any truth there. They're off the mark. And as we continue reading here, we'll continue connecting more dots. So on this harlot's forehead was written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. And when you do a longer study on this, there's a couple of very good books written on this about the symbols of Babylon and how they were carried forth into the Roman Catholic Church. And for example, the way that the nuns dress, and in that black, and the reason why they used to dress in black in ancient religious symbols long before the Roman Catholic Church came into existence was because it was these women's jobs to tender, to look after the various religious fires that they held in their temples. And if they wore black, then the smoke from them tending these fires was more concealed by wearing black. And the Pope's hat, his tall hat, it's sometimes called the fish hat, has its origins in ancient religion, and that is the case with so many different things. The worship of the woman, Mary, superseding the worship of Christ, often is simply a carryover of ancient women goddesses that came out of the Roman and Greek and even Egyptian mythologies, and they manifested different names like Astarte and Ashtaroth, and we can see how it just carried on. It was a mindset. It was a mindset that mankind could solve their own problems, or it was a mindset that mankind could control their masses. So this woman, a great harlot, adorned with gold, the great riches of the and precious stones of the Roman Catholic Church. And it said here, I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. So we know that from history, that this church was drunk with the blood of the saints, because there was many true believers that would not bow down, and they fell to the sword, and they fell to the burning at the stake. And so John the writer said, when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. Just imagine the vantage point, Revelation being written around AD 90, and John was looking at this huge system, not clearly seeing it, but he had all the right points to help us to find this system, and he marveled because he could recognize what this union of church and state and military and fear, it is so all-encompassing. Continuing on, verse 7, the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, now, this is a complicated piece. I'm not going to get into this today. This is mostly about the identification of this harlot being the Roman Catholic Church. It does state here that the beast that you saw, the beast that the woman was riding, was and not and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was and is not and yet is. So a beast, as described, it explains in Daniel chapter 7 that a beast is an empire. So the woman rides an empire. In this case, it has 7 heads and 10 horns because it was a long-standing, messy empire. Messy meaning there was power struggles, there was kings that got defeated, kings that arose, but nonetheless, the woman was continually riding this beast and has been doing so now for over 1,700 years, because the religious system rides the beast so that the religious system has secret political power. And that's why it maintains until the end of the age, until what is going on now. Now, continuing here in verse 9, it states, here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Okay, so it's saying, let's get some wisdom here. The 7 heads, which are on the beast, they are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Just for a reminder, I just scrolled back here to verse 7. The mystery of the woman, of the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. These heads talking about, a shuffle of government, a shuffle over the centuries, and same thing with the horns could apply to that. They also could apply mostly to 10 different governments over which the Roman Catholic Church holds sway at the end of the age where we now live in. Okay, back to this. The 7 heads on this beast are 7 mountains on which this woman sits. So it's giving us the location on earth where this woman is centered. Let's take a look. This is just a picture of a tourism brochure. Could be a book. It says here, the 7 hills of Rome. And it just has a basic picture of Rome in the background. And indeed, for those who are seeking, and in this case for just a historical tour, just to take a look and experience something new, this is promising that there is 7 hills in Rome, and that fits historically and has been called the city of 7 hills for centuries and centuries. And this is just a map here, and it states Vatican City on the 7 hills of Rome. And it goes around here to show this is the Vatican here, and it highlights that here is the 7 different hills of Rome, and they're all named right here. And like, how's that for a prophecy? Okay, there's been so many people that have come along and said different things. There's even people who have said that where it states in Revelation 17, it says, here's the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 hills where the woman sits. And some people say, well, that's Jerusalem. And they do. I've seen a couple different teachers say that. And then they end up looking for this great harlot that comes out of Jerusalem. But Jerusalem has nothing to do with being dressed in purple and scarlet. And Jerusalem has nothing to do, by comparison, with the fornication with the kings of the earth compared to what Rome has done, the Roman Catholic Church. And Jerusalem has yes, there's been bloodshed in Jerusalem, but those in Jerusalem never ever schemed and executed the amount of bloodshed that the Roman Catholic Church did right here, centered from the power that comes from the 7 hills of Rome. The cultural power that the Vatican has held sway has existed for over 1,700 years. All the other arguments about what the 7 hills of Rome is, or the Golden Cup, are so shallow, they're not connecting the dots. So let's continue connecting the dots. I just decided to jump back here to Revelation 17 and verse 2. It says, the kings of the earth committed fornication with this system. I'm saying it's the Roman Catholic Church. And the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk. Can anyone say that the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk by Arab kings? Can they say that the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk because Jerusalem is a city of 7 hills? The answer is no comparison. If you have ever been a Roman Catholic, or know someone who's been a Roman Catholic, right, and you view being a Roman Catholic from the inside, you are told and brainwashed to thinking that the Roman Catholic Church, with all its splendor all over the world, thousands of churches and more real estate than any other organization in the world, you then believe that it is the one and only universal church, and you do not hesitate to bow down to this whole power. Even people that live in Africa, very, very common. Many millions of people were converted to Roman Catholicism in Africa, and of course totally dominant in Central America and in South America. And the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the lies, the wine of her fornication, the lies of what she had to say, the harlot. Continuing on here in verse 12 of Revelation 17, the 10 horns which you saw, again, those 10 horns are on the beast that the harlot is riding. They are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast, with the government that the Roman Catholic Church rides. So, 1 hour is a very short time by Scripture. And so this appears to be referring to the end of the age, and our Heavenly Creator decided to describe this as 10 kings that receive authority for a little while, and they are of one mind. And we've already read a lot today about the kings of Europe and how they aligned with the Roman Catholic Church. So this is, again, no surprise. We've got, again, this could be 10 kings of Europe again, and these are of one mind, these kings, which means leaders of government, and they will give their power and authority to the beast, to the beast, to this overall blanket government. And look how ugly it becomes. These kings will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. So it takes a long time to understand about how the Roman Catholic Church is functioning in the world today, but what they did was the Roman Catholic Church took a really big hit with the Martin Luther experience, and so just at that time, what had happened in the world, that Martin Luther had the advantage of the printing press that had recently been created, and he was able to, those who followed his ideas, they were able to print many different pamphlets or pages and have them distributed around Europe. And the Catholic Church took a real hit there for a while. And so they had to fight back. And the time came when the Catholic Church could not overcome other governments with just the military sway that they held with various governments. They decided to do it covertly, to secretly do it. So what happened was, in the 1700s, the Masons were a growing organization. And 150 years before then, the Jesuits had become those who signed an oath to do anything to reduce the power of the Protestants and to give the Roman Catholic Church its secret glory again. So what actually happened, and it takes time to do your homework here, but the Jesuits secretly put puppet strings on the Masons, and thousands and thousands of Masonic men have been working for the Vatican through the guidance of the Jesuits, and it's all connected to the Illuminati, but the Vatican's at the top, and they've been covertly controlling governments. That's why we saw the picture earlier of the Roman, the Pope, with the American government overlooking, Washington, D.C. and looking at the obelisk. The power of the Roman Catholic Church was described in a video I did, and maybe you can look it up on YouTube. It's under my name, Glenn Sikorsky, and it's called Repeat Verses Reveal the Antichrist, because I believe that the Pope is clearly indicated to be the Antichrist. Verse 15 here in Revelation 17, then he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. That's just a reinforcement of, I think it's verse 2 in this chapter, where it says that the harlot sits on many waters. Well, that's exactly, again, a total reinforcement that this description that the Roman Catholic Church is the harlot has more dots connected than any other description or any other ideas. The waters which you saw, where the harlot sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. Well, that's what happened. How did the Roman Catholic Church become dominant in South America and Central America? Because guys on ships, men on ships, went across the waters and enabled the harlot to sit there. And these people, multitudes, nations, and tongues of people all over the world, Africa, like I say, Europe, North America, South America. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot. So in the end result, these governments are going to hate the harlot, the Roman Catholic Church. They're not going to buy it. Somehow they're going to see a big problem there. And what are these 10 horns, these other nations? In the end time, what are they going to do? They're going to make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. So they're going to do the will of God. Oh yeah, look at this, I forgot. Verse 17, for God has put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind, and to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. So God has had them, he gave them a purpose to hate the harlot, and that the kingdom of the beast would be dominant until the words of God are fulfilled, which they will be as we continue reading in Revelation 18, 19, and 20. It's really heavy stuff, but my main purpose today was to do what it says right here in verse 18. And the woman, the harlot, the false religious system that God despises, and the woman whom you saw is the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. It needs to be understood. It's not the Muslims that rule over the kings of the earth. It is the Roman Catholic Church. And we can see that with this present Pope. He's going around and accepting other religions. His doctrine has become where he makes statements that there are many ways to God. It's easy to Google this. You can see what he's saying. And he is even accepting the LGBT community, and he's meeting with the kings of the earth. He's even he's having peace parties with the Muslims, and even having peace parties with religious leaders in Jerusalem today. And the woman who you saw, that great harlot, is the great city, the city of seven hills, Rome, which reigns over the kings of the earth. The number of dots that we have connected here is great reason to be thankful for this clear prophecy. What a blessing this prophecy is.